So we have two different types of technicians and service shops. Technically, we're kind of down to just one of them anymore, except for those of you that are going to build a business. We have an authorized service shop, which means that they're a dealer of at least one manufacturer. So that's all of your major brands like Brother, Janome, Viking, Singer, Pfaff, Elna, all of those. They usually have, well, they have to have a certified technician on hand, and they are factory trained. That factory training is typically in warranty work these days. I personally was certified in Brother, Janome, Viking, Singer, and Pfaff. And I'll cover that in a bit. And I was a special case. We were not a dealership. I did support a dealer for a short time, a couple years. So they need at least one technician on hand in order for them to be a dealer because of the warranty work part of it. They have access to manufacturer parts. So that's usually your more complex things like computer screens, computer boards, pulse motors, all those things. They may service other brands, but we're starting to see a lot more of them paring down because the technicians that are available to have on hand are only factory trained on the brands that shop sells. So let's say that you become certified in Janome and Brother, and that's the shop you work for. You don't get access to all those other brands. So even when you go to an authorized shop that services other machines, they're not authorized in those machines either. The goal of dealerships is always going to be to sell machines. I'm not dogging dealers at all. The reason that my partnership with a dealer absolutely failed was because his goal was to sell machines, and written somewhere into my DNA at this point is my job is to save machines. That does not work. He was mad at me for saving someone's machine and not pushing for a trade-in or anything. And I was mad at him for taking somebody's perfectly good machine and pressuring them into selling a machine. So that did not work. Again, newer and younger techs are missing critical service skills. I finally been invited to the table in the industry. There is a trade show that happens, or trade association that exists, called VDTA and SDTA, which stands for Vacuum and Dealer Service Trade Association, right? VDTA, yeah, something like that. And every year they do a big conference in Vegas where a lot of the manufacturers come, and some people finish their certification there. And even when we were just at QuiltCon, in February? Mm-hmm. We were approached by two different dealers in the Raleigh area saying, we really need you. The problem is that I'm not in a position to train. I can, and we are working on that. We actually are moving into training existing technicians, but because they only go to factory training, the factory is not teaching them fundamentals in troubleshooting, and they're not teaching them fundamentals in regular service and adjustment, like timing and adjustments. They're learning warranty work just to support that dealer, and that's not what people need. And they usually won't work on vintage or antique machines. Most of them kind of turn their nose at them because that doesn't make them any money. And especially motor service and rewiring. If you've ever been in my open house events, you know I preach about this a lot. This is probably one of the highest needs everywhere. I get 30 to 40 emails a week of people trying to send their machines to us still for restoration and motor service rewiring. I can't do that anymore. So that is definitely the highest need because nobody's trained in that in the authorized service shops. Now, on the other hand, we have independent technicians like me. So I am not associated with a brand or a dealer at this time. Even though I did my factory training back in 2019 and 2020, it's pretty much null and void because I am not attached to a dealer. So what I would have to do is go back to work for a dealer and support them and probably renew my training and prove my skills again. But you have to be associated with a dealer. It is not considered certified. There is no such thing that exists. As a future endeavor of our academy, we're absolutely working on our own certified program. And all that means is that I would put my name behind it. You have proven your skill and your ability to do these procedures. That means that I would put my name behind you and my reputation, which, if you know, in this business is a very big deal. As an independent, I only have access to manufacturer parts available on the public market or aftermarket parts, so I don't have access to dealer parts. That means when a customer brings their machine to me and it's not powering on, or something's, like a big component is broken, I really probably don't have access to those parts. Typically, on the other hand, though, independent technicians are usually a little bit more knowledgeable across all brands. They're all a little different and they're all a little bit the same. I mean, every single sewing machine, whether it's old or new, has the same mechanical components. It's usually the other things like the plastic shell and the computer boards and the electronics, or the way that they are operating together, that is different among the different brands and models. Again, my goal is to save as many machines as possible. That does not mean that I can save them all. I do lack skills related to computers, electronics, and major repairs. All of that training I did in the factory was very much worthless to me because most machines don't come in for warranty at that time. I don't think I ever did them. I think I did 2 major repairs in the entire 3 years that I worked for that dealer. And then he had 5 brands. And it's usually the go-to for vintage and antique machines. And again, usually motor service and electrical is like top demand. So that's the difference between an authorized service shop and an independent technician. Now, one of the reasons why we're facing such a shortage is because Hancock Fabrics closed. I don't even know how long ago that was. You remember? It was years ago. That was typically most people's independent technician that was left. And when they closed up shop, that technician went away. So now we were pretty much only left with the few old timers that are hanging on to their service shops, maybe passing on to the next generation, and with our service shops that are connected to a dealer. So what does certified mean? This is just a short little thing. Again, it has to be a service shop attached to a dealer with specific training to that manufacturer. That means they've been factory trained and deemed certified. I did have to do extensive testing and prove my abilities on certain machines. It's only valid for that brand. So if I, like I said, if I want to go work for another dealer and I don't, then I would have to go back through my certification again, train specifically in warranty work to support that dealer. So in conjunction with that, I have this little graph that I made. I'm really kind of proud of this one because it's taken me a long time to try to figure out how to visually explain this. What happens when your machine comes into a shop for service? So I have 4 different colors here on this bar. There's blue, green, red, and black. On the blue, we have troubleshooting. And almost every machine gets this, even if it comes in with the customer not saying anything's broken. So Paul, the way we set up our shop was we actually called it triage because it's the sewing dock, of course. And either he or one of our staff would go through the machine before it even went on the shelf just to check it over and see if there's any parts we need to order, if anything's broken, missing, look at what the customer said's wrong with it and see if it's really a major repair. Because again, we found that most machines just really needed some minor fixing and the service part. And then the green is where we do all of our service. So that means opening up the machine, cleaning out the computer boards if it has them, cleaning, lubrication, resolving those issues, test sewing, and balancing tension. In our red, we have timing and adjustments. So you have hook timing, feed timing, needle bar height, hook needle clearance, needle position, zigzag adjustment, parabola. And that also means like if your needle bar is sitting to the left of center, or the zigzags are kind of going weird. And then we have repairs, which are electronics, computer boards, screens, major part replacement, much, much deeper things. What most people don't know is that 90% of machines that come across my bench and every bench, this is what they need right here: troubleshooting and service. That's it. So when you take your machine into a shop, even if it doesn't need a timing adjustment, you're still paying for that in one fee. Repairs are usually an additional fee for the part and for the labor. And for an independent technician, these 3 things here, troubleshooting, service, and timing, is what we do. That's pretty much our lane. Again, this is mostly left to service shops, and that's because they have access to the parts and they have different factory training. I'd say that this is different for vintage machines. We do a lot more. We're not doing electronics and computer boards or screens in there, but we do a lot more repair within the vintage realm because it's different. So back to our lane is troubleshooting, service, and timing. Those 3 things. And honestly, they are the most profitable parts of a service business. So that's where I added on our functional restoration and all that good stuff. So what's not in our lane are the electronics, computer boards, screens, and major part replacement. So how would I handle this with my customer? And this happened quite frequently, which is why we did the triage. For a long time, machines would come in and they would be sitting on the shelf, especially during the pandemic, where they would be sitting there for 3, 4, 6 weeks or what have you. Then we would get to them and realize, oh man, we can't even do this. Like, the customer's gonna be mad because we've had their machine for a couple of weeks and we can't even handle this. So we implemented what we call triage, where either Paul or one of our staff members would go through the machine, make sure it's actually functioning, check out its issues, so that we could just be honest with the customer. I will say 100% that the two things that made our business the most successful is one, our level of honesty, both in what our abilities were, what we were going to do to the machine, and what we did to the machine. So even in a case where we replaced gears on a machine, I bagged up all of our parts that we took out of the machine and replaced and gave it to the customer with their machine so they could see exactly what happened. I have I don't even know how many terabytes of pictures I probably have of things I've taken pictures of on people's machines so they could actually see what's happening in their machine, why it was malfunctioning or what the buildup was or what have you. So number one is always going to be honesty. The worst thing they're going to do is be mad at you, but all you can say is, this is not something my shop can handle. I can recommend you to, an authorized local service shop. Why is it beneficial to stay in my lane? I get it. And I see this starting to creep up a little bit with some people in our programs. When you go into this as a business, it's hard to say no. It's very, very, very hard, because unlike a service shop attached to a dealer, you almost never see the technician in those shops. Because they're behind the scene and you have your ladies up front that take care of everything. When it's you as the technician and your front of your business, you're the one that's in contact with your customer. So it's very personal, and you have to be the one to tell that customer no, which is very, very hard. In fact, Spike is in our program, and he's been building his business for about 3 months. And he just asked about gear replacement the other day. And when we talked him through how not beneficial that is for either of them, he's like, okay, now I got to go break the bad news to my customer. And I'm like, that is really hard.
And
but
they decided not to do it.
He did. Yes. And that
the
customer did decide not to do it. But it is heartbreaking when you have to do that. But when you stay in your lane, you are giving your best service to the customers that you can help. So remember, our goal is to save as many machines as possible, not to save every single machine, because that can't happen. When you stay in your lane, doing the service and maintenance on a machine and even the timing adjustments is absolutely the fastest path. For those that try to branch out of our lane, you spend so much time. And when you have a business, time is money. You can try and hunt down electronics and computer boards and then finding resources to tell you how to fix it. And then the bigger problem is you run the risk of causing further damage to a customer's machine, which is absolutely terrible. So this is why I will preach over and over again. It's hard to say no, but you have to stay in your lane. And yes, some of those things can be done, but you got to know where the line is. Pulse motors that control the feed dogs. I have helped people in our programs replace those things. And in the vintage program, Paul will go to absolute crazy lengths to try and save a vintage machine. And that means a lot of creative fixes. And that's where his real asset is when you've got like a broken thread guide from a machine that's 100 years old, and that's the machine's not going to work without it. We might find something. So it is really important to stay in your lane.